Throughout our lives, we are constantly confronted by gatekeepers. They take the shape of imposing bosses, rigid hierarchies, and our own perceived physical limitations. Confronted with these barriers, our instinct is almost always to pause. We second-guess our abilities, react to the immediate pressure, and wait for permission to proceed. You know the exact sensation. It's the physical shrinking you feel when a senior executive dismisses your idea in a meeting, or the literal paralysis that locks your muscles when a nightmare turns terrifying. By yielding to that hesitation, we build our own cages. We hand over our agency, creating a cycle where we remain stuck because we allowed the obstacle to dictate our boundaries. This response is an evolutionary biological mechanism. When the amygdala, the brain's fear center, senses an unknown threat, it violently overrides rational logic to prioritize immediate survival. This is the exact machinery behind sleep paralysis. When your mind wakes up before your body does, the panicked brain struggles to explain why it can't move. So it invents a threat, projecting a shadowy demon or night hag standing right on your chest. The intimidating executive and the sleep paralysis demon share a vital secret. They possess zero objective power over you. They are empty vessels that only take shape when fueled by your own internal panic. Centuries before modern neuroscience, ancient esoteric traditions encountered this same psychological threshold. They approached the confrontation with fear as a technical problem, developing ritual solutions to neutralize the gatekeepers of the mind. This is a page from the Nag Hammadi library, a collection of ancient Gnostic texts from Egypt. It functions as a literal survival manual. Initiates were taught to memorize specific ritual formulas to bypass hostile cosmic gatekeepers, known as archons, when navigating the afterlife. When an archon demanded to know where a soul came from, the initiate didn't beg for mercy. They delivered a precise declaration of their eternal origin. They asserted a sovereign identity that predated the material world entirely, exploiting a systemic vulnerability to crash the gatekeeper's authority. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches a nearly identical concept. When a deceased soul encounters terrifying, blood-drinking monsters in the intermediate state called the Bardo, they are instructed to practice radical recognition. They must look directly at the monsters and realize they are merely projections of the soul's own unpurified mind. The moment you objectify the fear, the neurological loop snaps. The entity loses its only source of energy and collapses entirely. Exposing a threat as a self-generated illusion is the ultimate exploit. It overrides your brain's defensive programming and forces the doors open. You don't have to wait for the afterlife or the dream state to use this technology. The exact same protocol dictates how social power dynamics operate in broad daylight. In the early 20th century, the pioneering psychologist William James formulated the as-if strategy. He observed that if you physically embody the posture and boldness of a confident person, your internal psychological reality actually reorganizes itself to match that physical projection. Christopher Columbus ran this exact script. He was the son of a modest tradesman, yet he stepped into the courts of Spanish nobility and played the perfect, unbothered courtier. He projected an air of high birth so convincingly that the royalty simply believed him and funded his expeditions. Acting like a king is the waking world's Gnostic equivalent. When you aggressively project supreme confidence, you strip everyday gatekeepers of their leverage, forcing them to accept the reality you present. The most effective historical figures take this a step further. They don't just bypass existing gatekeepers, they actively manufacture impossible amounts of pressure to bend objective reality to their will. In the late 1800s, Thomas Edison was tinkering with early designs for electric light. Instead of quietly testing in his lab, he called a major newspaper and publicly announced that within 5 years, he would light the entire city of New York with electricity. At the time, he did not possess the technology to do this. This photograph shows the interior of a massive laboratory from that era. Because of Edison's supreme bluff, investors panicked. The stock prices for traditional gas lighting tanked, and a massive flood of capital was suddenly funneled directly into his research facilities. And here we see the physical infrastructure that followed. Backed into a corner by his own public deadline, Edison's team worked with a level of intense, frenetic focus that wouldn't have existed otherwise. They successfully developed the incandescent bulb right on schedule. Inviting immense stress provides the barometric pressure required to transmute a psychological bluff into objective reality. waking up inside a nightmare to banish a shadow demon, and commanding a room full of skeptical investors rely on the exact same psychological muscle. Every night when you fall asleep, and every morning when you step into a high-stakes scenario, you are entering a gauntlet of gatekeepers designed to test your resolve. True authority is never handed out by society as a genetic gift. It is a sovereign state that you actively claim through radical self-recognition. Stop waiting for the world to give you permission, and stop shrinking from the pressure. The protocols of awareness are already in your possession. By projecting boldness and recognizing that the barriers in front of you are largely illusions fueled by your own hesitation, you rewrite the code. You become the architect of your own reality, effortlessly walking through the gates that keep the rest of the world trapped.